Joining us right now is Georgia Senator, member of the Senate Budget, Banking, and Armed Services Committees, David Perdue. Senator, it's good to see you this morning. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good morning, Maria.
A lot of mixed headlines out of China. Certainly, you got the country bullying American companies to do it their way, including the NBA, and then you've got them promising to buy more agricultural products. How do you see this China trade conversation?
Well, having lived over there and worked over there most of my career, Maria, I think this latest development is terribly encouraging. It's a very small step. We can take our ag exports from 9 billion to something like 40 or 50 billion. But more importantly, it's an incremental step, which heretofore neither side really wanted to do. So I think this latest round of agreements is extremely encouraging. I was just over in China over Labor Day with Steve Daines, a senator from Montana, and we had meetings with Liu He, their trade representative, and we were encouraged then that they gave us indications that they were willing to begin doing this. So I think this bodes well for our next conversation relative to the next potential hike in tariffs for December.
Do you have any indication that China is going to stop stealing intellectual property from the United States?
You know, Maria, that's the question. I mean, there are 5 things we're trying to do in these trade talks, and they're not all related to trade. Some of them are related to national security. We want them to stop stealing our technology, stop forcing the transfer of technology into the joint ventures, comply with the WTO, stop the cyber war, and give us equal access. So the WTO compliance and equal access are sort of our first steps. Equal access is the easy part. The encouragement I have is that by making an incremental agreement now, it gives us hope that we can begin to increment our way toward the ultimate solution here.
So it sounds like you don't have any indications that they're going to stop stealing yet.
No, I mean, okay. You know, first of all, they'd have to deny that they've ever done that, and so this continues to be.
That's right.
Exactly.
We want to switch gears to ask you about the Middle East tensions. Turkey signaling that it will hold back on the incursion into Syria as Russian President Vladimir Putin agrees to help Turkey drive out Kurdish fighters from buffer zones in Syria. This is happening just one day after the 120-hour ceasefire between Turkey and Syria expired. Does it concern you that Russia and Turkey are partnering here?
I'm very concerned, Maria, that a member of NATO, Turkey, is partnering with Russia. I mean, NATO was created in order to stand up against the threat from the Soviet Union and now Russia. And so what Putin has done is stepped into a vacuum. What Erdogan wanted all along was a 30-mile buffer there between Turkey and Syria, right on the border. I've been there, and it's a very reasonable request. Now, he's not a good guy, but there are 3 allies that we were working with to develop that. It didn't happen in the time frame that everybody thought it would, and so Turkey stepped in, and now Putin has stepped into that vacuum. So I'm very troubled by that. I don't think this changes our mission in Syria, though, and that is to make sure that ISIS does not get redeveloped, that we give a counter to Iran, and that we continue to protect Iraq. What's most troubling is how Iraq is responding to the movement of troops right now in and out of Syria.
Yeah,
between Iraq and Syria.
They don't want the troops there. Omid,
yeah. Hi, Senator Omid Malik, proud Emory Law School alum, so a lot of love for Atlanta. I want to ask you about Syria. I've been a bit shocked about how simplistic the analysis has been, though. As you pointed out rightfully, Turkey is a NATO ally, and they have housed over 3 million Syrian refugees within their borders that they didn't ask for, that they've had to burden. So having them go back and help them repatriate them into Syria. And the Turkish government is no friend of Assad. And having their influence there potentially counterweight the Iranian influence as a NATO ally could actually be thought of as a beneficial posture, which I know the president says. So I don't think that perspective has received enough airtime, and I do think it's one that presumably you started to allude to that you may agree with slightly.
Well, it's an unholy alliance to think about Bashar al-Assad partnering with Erdogan. They hate each other right now. Putin seems to be the peacemaker. All of a sudden, it puts us on the side of Iran with regard to that triumvirate. So it's a very confused calculus. But here's the bottom line. You said it best. The real motivating factor here are the refugees up in Syria. Some 3 million. I've been to Gaziantep. We've seen them. But most of those refugees were assimilated into the cities in Turkey. You can imagine what pressure that is putting on them. And rightfully so. All the allies should have really moved faster, I think, to support this buffer zone to move those refugees back into Syria.
Does NATO have a role in doing that and protecting the Kurds in northern part of Syria, but also moving, caring for and taking care of those refugees?
Well, the number one thing is that the Kurds have partnered with us to defeat ISIS. We've removed their caliphate. The remnants are still there, though, and we're going to keep a force of special operation officers there. We're now today partnering with the Kurds in northern Syria, but This has not been determined yet what the role is going to be of Erdogan, and I think that's the real crucial calculus here, is who's going to maintain and measure and manage that buffer zone. Right now, Erdogan stepped into a vacuum. I think I'm still hopeful that we can have an allied approach to that. Putin is only patrolling 6 miles. This is not that he's taken over the buffer zone. But if nothing happens from the allies, he could well do that.
Let me switch gears and ask you about some domestic issues, Senator, because the Democrats are looking to force a vote today to overturn the state and local tax deduction. SALT, it's capped now at $10,000. Minority Leader Chuck Schumer says overturning it would, quote, put power back in the hands of homeowners. Your reaction?
It's the most hypocritical thing I've read, in the last few months up here. Just when you think that they can't be any more hypocritical, they come up with something like this. Absolutely ridiculous. This would be a tax cut for absolutely the top earners in New York, California, Illinois, the high tax states. And look, Maria, the rest of the country has been subsidizing these high tax states forever. What we did 2 years ago was balance that across the country. Look, the regulatory work we did and this tax bill we passed in 2017 absolutely has created the best economic turnaround in U.S. history. But what Schumer wants to do is go back and give money back now to the richest in his state. That's the most hypocritical thing I have ever heard.
Have you seen any indication from some of these local mayors and governors of the high tax states that they're going to change their tax policy and cut taxes and rein in spending as a result of what they're seeing the impact of SALT deduction going away is?
Well, to a reasonable person, that'd be the first thing you would go to, wouldn't it, Maria? That's what we were hoping was going to happen.
Right,
we can't keep subsidizing these high state tax states. And look, the benefits that the people in those states are supposed to get from those high taxes are not there either. We can compare low tax states to high tax state. It's not there. But again, the hypocrisy of going back and giving that tax break to the richest in those states is so counter strategy from what they say they believe in. And I just think this is hypocritical. This is not going to go anywhere in the Senate, I can assure you.
Senator, it's good to see you this morning. Thanks so much.
Thanks, guys.
Senator David Perdue joining us.